Distinguished, thank you for joining us on Politics Today.
Yeah, good evening. How are you?
I'm very fine, thank you. You're no stranger to screening exercises as this, but I'd like to get your assessment of what happened today at the Senate. Yes, the Senate did go ahead with its tradition of bow and go for some, but if you compare this screening exercise with the previous ones, how would you assess it?
And I think it's very important to note that the task of screening ministerial nominee does not begin and end at the floor at the plenary. Before the appearance of the nominee, their resume would have been given to senators who would have studied it, and if they have, questions bordering on their qualification, first, as a matter of law and constitution, that will be raised. You will know that there are basically the work of the Senate in the confirmation hearing is basically twofold. One, to first ascertain whether, as a matter of constitutional requirement, the nominee satisfy the requirements of the Constitution. The second will be to now, go beyond that and see whether, from their experience, from their exposure, and from what they have done in the past, they will be able to contribute meaningfully to the government of the president. As it were today, and as it is tradition with the Senate, when a person has been a national legislator, it is assumed that he has the content and the character to be able to handle the work of the other arm of government, which is the executive. And that is why the tradition is that you just take a bow and go. And of course, there's logic and sense in that tradition. If the person that is being asked to take a bow and go had been a legislator at that point in time, he would have been in a position to scrutinize such other nominee. So it would be anomalous to expect somebody who had acquired the status of being in a position to screen and confirm a nominee to now say you are going through rigor of another confirmation. As for the remaining other nominees, questions were asked by senators as to topical national issues with a view to ascertaining their understanding of issues affecting the country and providing possible solution. And of course, after the plenary, the Senate at the executive session and in the committee of the whole, confirmed the nominee. So the stage is set for them to be sworn in by the governor, by the president, so that they can resume work in earnest.
Right, distinguished, let me ask you this question. The Senate has repeatedly said it would be good for the president to send the portfolios of those ministers along with their names. And this is still not the case, considering that you screen these ministers without knowing where they would be assigned to. Is this no longer a concern for the Senate?
You see, we have that concern, but our concern must have to be looked at within the context of the existing constitutional provision. The existing constitutional provision does not oblige the president to attach portfolios to the nominees for ministerial appointment. But of course, there is a pending bill that has been forwarded to the State Assembly to make that a constitutional requirement, such that in the future, when that amendment becomes law, then the portfolio will be attached to the nominee. But then, for either of the arguments, there will be some reasons that people may advance whether it is actually desirable to attach a portfolio to the office of a minister. And I will say this without derogating from the fact that there's already a pending legislative action to make that to be mandatory. By Section 5 of the existing constitutional provision, the executive power of the federal government is vested in Mr. President, who may assign directly or indirectly ministers or any other persons to carry out such activity. It will mean that irrespective of whatever portfolio a minister is even given, by Section 5, the President of the Federal Republic may assign some other responsibility within the ambit of Section 5 and the amplitude of the executive power of the President under Section 5 of the Constitution. But the contention of the Senate is that it will allow the Senate to properly carry out its confirmatory role if portfolios were known in advance, so that questions relevant, germane, and being able to assist the senators in coming with a determination as to suitability of the nominee, will be before the Senate.
When you look at those crop of ministers that the president has nominated now, would you say that they, with the responsibilities or the short frame available between now and the end of the tenure, which is just about 11 months, do you think that within this time available that they can deliver on the president's mandate in these respective portfolios which are unknown now?
Of course, I think as soon as the ministers are sworn in, they will be given the portfolios that they will work upon. And I also know that presently, I don't think there's even any ministry that is not under one form of supervision of those of some ministers. Some of them may be under a Minister of State previously, who are now being supervised by those Ministers of State. Like, for instance, the Ministry of Transportation, which is now being supervised by Senator Saraki. So I believe also that the way government bureaucracy works is that irrespective of minister, there is the permanent secretary and the amplitude of the bureaucracy of the ministry that will be able to assist the minister in implementing the policies of the government. So, but I also believe that notwithstanding the short period of time, it is actually in the interest of the government of the country to ensure that the full amplitude of ministerial requirement is actually given recognition, and the appointment therefore is apposite, notwithstanding that the fact that we have about a year to the end of the tenure of our President Muhammadu Buhari.
Senator Basiru, following the screening, I couldn't help but notice that the ministers were questioned along different lines, almost suggesting that the Senate had an idea of where certain ministers could be posted to. Is that the case? Were you questioning, Senator, the ministerial nominees along the lines of, along broad lines based on where they could be posted to, or were you restricted to a certain line of questioning because of their qualifications?
Of course, I said earlier on that there are two, stages. First is to even look at the basic minimum requirements for qualification for the office of a minister. The second would be to inquire into their general understanding of the polity, possibly the economy and social issues in the country. I wouldn't know that any senator has power of clairvoyance or to be able to predict what eventually Mr. President will do in terms of assignment of portfolio. But I think some of the questions that were asked today arose from the concerns of the areas where distinguished senators asking those questions, things at the mind of the country, should be focusing. Like, for instance, the lingering, strike of the academic staff union of universities, which is rather becoming very worrisome as to the damage that is doing to the academic climate of Nigeria. Of course, questions also about infrastructure is also a germane question that, irrespective of whatever portfolio any minister will be given, it should be able to have some answers into some of those topical and germane issues.
Senator Basiru, you had talked about how confident you were in the abilities of these nominees, considering that you had checked out their pedigree and how they can deliver. But just considering that the tenure of the president is almost over, what's the Senate's expectation from this crop of ministers in such a short time? The expectation specifically from the Senate. What are some of the areas that you expect these ministers to focus on, or the cabinet of the president to focus on?
I think it will depend on the portfolio, if it's in terms of specific requirements or specific expectation from the nominees who have been confirmed, will depend on what portfolio they have been given and they will be assigned by the president. But in terms of general expectation, I will say that Nigerians are concerned about the government taking a better approach to the issue of security in the country. The issue of security is very worrisome, and we must be able, to, as a government, and we are not isolating ourselves, even from the legislative arm, from the need for us to address the problem of security. And this problem actually provide a drawback on many other achievements of our president and our government in the area of infrastructure, social intervention, and so on, and so forth. So I think, basically the agenda in relation to security is very topical. Another very, topical agenda has to do with energy. Energy is very critical to infrastructure, development. And the worsening energy crisis because of the challenge with the national grid, and of course the faulty transmission, system is another critical area that we think the government and the new cabinet should also focus on. Also of importance is also the area of food security. The rate of inflation and the cost of living is also very worrisome. I would believe that the ministers, as well as those who have been there before, need to assist in working very well and ensuring that we address the problem that affect the welfare and the cost of living of Nigerians.
Let's get the mood of the Senate, especially during the screening process, because we understand that over 20 senators on the verge of leaving the All Progressives Congress, and they had met with the president yesterday, led by the chief whip of the House, Senator Ojuzo Kalu. Do you get a sense, or did you get a sense from today's proceedings that there should be no fears within the APC that those senators will be leaving?
I wouldn't know what individual senators would think, but I would also not believe that all the 22 senators would leave the party. I know many of them who are our colleagues are committed party members, notwithstanding the challenges and whatever misgiving they may have about the processes of the primary. I believe that they understand well that our party is poised to win the presidency in 2023, and that even if they are not coming back to the 10th assembly, they have a duty to ensure the emergence of candidates, particularly for the office of president in their respective constituency, and also looking forward to be of service to our party and the country in many other capacity beyond being members of the National Assembly. So I believe that the party leadership, as well as the presidency, and of course our leader, Ajibola Tinubu, they are doing their best to arrest the situation and ensure that all of us work assiduously for the emergence of Ajibola Tinubu on the platform of the APC in the 2023 general elections.
While you're confident of winning that election, it would seem that this is beyond the president. It would seem that the governors, the state governors, are bent on making sure that these senators do not return, and that's why they have decided to see the president to see if there could be an intervention. Does this not suggest, going into the elections, that the ranks of the APC could have been depleted or could be depleted going forward, especially if these senators are not appeased and they end up leaving the party? Would you still view that confidence going into 2023?
I'm very optimistic that our party will win the 2023 presidential election. And I will also say that just as we have, senators that feel aggrieved that they are not returning, you will also know that in those constituencies, there are also senators who are also itching to win elections and ensure that they get it to the 10th assembly. So it is a situation whereby, yes, you have challenges with the incumbent, but those that have won the ticket will also want to do their best to ensure that our party win in their various constituency. And I also believe that the party leadership is also doing their best to ensure that we take this behind ourselves. For instance, today, even in Oshobo, there was a meeting by the National Secretary with aspirants of the party across the State Assembly and National Assembly, urging them to work for the success of the party in the July 16 government election and ultimately the February 2023 general election. So I'm very optimistic that irrespective of these challenges, all of us will weather the storm and work conscientiously, assiduously, and with all vigor to ensure the emergence of Ajibola Tinubu as the president of the country in February 2023.
Before we go on break, I know that it's a concern for the APC senators that if this number, if 22 or 20 APC members leave the APC, there could be a problem with the majority in the Senate. So let me ask you this question. Do you have an idea of how many senators you have now?
I wouldn't believe that 22 senators will leave our party. I think it's a mere wishful thinking, and I say this with all sense of responsibility. I know quite a number of the 22 senators who, yes, they may feel aggrieved, but they have put so much to build the platform that they will not jump from the platform just because they have this present challenge. Of course, politics is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Of course, they will weather the storm and then bounce back in other capacities very soon.
Ajibola, I asked if you had a specific number of senators currently in the Senate.
I think my party should have about 64 senators, and the People's Democratic Party, I think about 37 or 38 senators. I know some senators, like the national chairman of our party and the deputy national chairman, they left the Senate because they are taking responsibility at the party level. And it's also not just that some of the returning senators, some of the senators are not returning because they lost at the primary. Some of them actually had a nomination for a gubernatorial position. Like, for instance, Senator Aishatu Binani, who won the governorship primary in Adamawa State. Same thing for my leader, Senator His Excellency Omagege, who won the governorship election in Delta State. So it's not just, some senators, of course, elect not to even go back. Some contested presidential election, like our leader, Senator Ajibola, who contested presidential election and they did not bother to take form to contest to go back to the Senate. So it's not just about those that could not secure nomination of the party, but some did not actually want to come back to the Senate because of higher calling and because of some other endeavors that they seek to achieve.
All right. Senator Ajibola Basiru, thank you very much for coming to speak with us today on Politics Today.
Yeah, thank you very much too for giving us the opportunity to interrogate the issues.